Most of us have heard about the face on Mars and repeated accusations that NASA has been covering up the truth. The release of 65,000 photographs from NASA's Mars Global Surveyor has now put us on the fast track to discovery about a past intelligent civilization on the Red Planet. This is NASA's uncover-up, if you will. Strap yourself in. We're about to see compelling proof of artificial structures on Mars that could have profound implications for the history of the human race. This is a sculpture by artist John Sheldon of the famous five-sided pyramid photographed by NASA's Viking probe in the Cydonia region of Mars. But as the late Carl Sagan pointed out in his television series Cosmos, the Elysium area also has pyramids, and these pyramids, very seldom spoken about, are said to be twice as tall as the World Trade Center. Geologists insist that the wind would have to be blowing from three directions, all at the same speed, for the pyramids of Elysium to have been formed naturally. And then there are the glass-like tunnels, which are at least 60 feet in diameter, with exposed sections running 1,000 feet long. The tunnels are amazing. We may be looking at nothing less than the ultimate proof of an ancient civilization that used these tunnels for water or perhaps even for transportation.
Is or was there ever life on Mars? It's a question that's excited scientists since the dawn of the space age. And right now there are orbiters, landers, roving vehicles all over the surface of the red planet analysing it, but it's still an open question. How habitable is our celestial neighbour, and what, if anything, could have inhabited it? Here are 4 key moments in the search to answer that question.
Just 2 weeks later, there was a second.
In 1976, NASA's Viking lander was the first mission to look for microbial life in soil samples it grabbed from Mars's surface. It didn't find evidence of even the simplest organic molecule. Since then, some members of the Viking team had questioned whether they missed something in that initial analysis, but to this day, there's no accepted evidence of microbial life on Mars. In July of 1996, NASA scientists announced the discovery of fossils of bacterial life in meteorites that they found in Antarctica, meteorites from Mars that had crashed into our planet 12,000 years ago. After huge initial excitement, NASA said that after 2 years of continuing to study that meteorite, those initial lines of evidence simply went away. But to this day, there are still scientists who maintain that initial analysis was valid. Both NASA's Curiosity rover and the European Space Agency's orbiter have detected whiffs of the gas methane on Mars. Now that's tantalising because on Earth, the vast majority of methane comes from microbial life. So future Martian missions have set their sights on detecting exactly where that gas is coming from.
Buried inside the red planet, a long-sought discovery adds to the speculation there may have once been life on Mars.
Well, the final remarks are very simple. Water is there. We have not anymore any doubt.
Unveiling their findings at a news conference, scientists at the Italian Space Agency announced that they have located an underground lake on Mars, the first stable body of liquid ever found on the red planet. After years studying data from a ground-penetrating radar on an orbiting spacecraft, the Italian researchers say they have identified a large liquid reservoir buried over a kilometer beneath an ice sheet near the South Pole. It's a discovery that raises a tantalizing possibility.
There are all the ingredients for thinking that life can be there or can be maintained there if life once existed on Mars, a Martian surface.
Comparing it to a subglacial lake on Earth, researchers said the Martian reservoir may resemble a habitat, although there's no evidence to support that yet. But a body of water on Mars not only has implications for finding life or proving it was once there, but also for our future exploration on the red planet.
Finding water on Mars is very important for practical reasons for human exploration because you don't have to bring the water with you. You need the water to survive for long periods of time on Mars, but you also can make fuel out of it. And so having it accessible on the planet itself is almost enabling for human exploration on Mars.
Outside experts have not yet been able to confirm the Italian Space Agency's findings, but evidence that Mars was once a wet planet has been observed several times. A huge underground lake could help us understand how billions of years changed our neighboring planet and what that could mean for our future here on Earth.
Well, let's speak to planetary scientist Roberto Oresi, who is the principal investigator behind this finding. Roberto, an incredible discovery. Wow. How did you find this evidence of a liquid lake beneath the surface of Mars?
The radar could detect very strong echoes from the bottom of the ice sheet. And this on Earth is almost invariably associated with the presence of liquid water. By working by analogy, we could try to draw this conclusion, but because the conditions of Mars are so exotic and it was complex to prove it through, we had to undergo through 2 years of gruesome analysis, simulations, and reanalysis to convince ourselves and eventually the reviewers of the paper that that was the only possible explanation, or at least the most likely by far.
Before I turn the microphone over to Brian O'Leary, I have something I want to show you over to your left. The face on Mars is back. This sculpture is made by artist Salvador Rosilio and based on the original Viking photograph of the face on Mars. It shows a giant sphinx-like figure with human features in Cydonia. And now a new photograph has been released that's really going to make you sit up and take notice. It's an entirely new face on Mars, and this time it appears to be the face of a woman wearing a crown.
Science is going through a major revolution. There's no question about it. We are living in exciting times in spite of what government agencies might tell you. And probably in no area has there been more misunderstanding than in the area of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. In 1976, the Mars Viking orbiter imaged a mile-long mesa that resembles a human face staring straight up into space. The spacecraft also imaged other objects of interest in the surrounding areas. This began a 25-long period of scientifically inappropriate actions, including the initial denial of a second corroborating image of the Cydonia face. The use of improper optical algorithms and filters on the high-resolution face image for example, the initial Mars Global Surveyor photograph, holding back or delaying the release of images from the public, and providing premature negative interpretations of their possible artificiality. Also, we have seen in NASA a lack of cooperation with qualified outside investigators, including campaigns to discredit the inquiry. How could this have happened? Perhaps NASA and its contractors and other agencies are following a secret policy to deny evidence for extraterrestrial intelligence, pursuant to a 1961 Brookings Institution report recommending non-disclosure to the public.
That do apply to the second and third instances, that these are statistically significant and telling us that the planet has artificial structures on it, and that these are not repeated instances of freakish chances of nature. In this image, by any artist, it is just rearranging the features you see by computer instructions to restore a high angle of lighting, put the shadows in the right place, and to restore an overhead view from this oblique view to one side. And here's what happens when we do that. There's the lighting restored, and now we rotate to a view from above. And this is what the object actually looks like, as best we can tell at this point. So both the other scientific arguments and the new view of the face certainly have our attention with regard to prospective artificiality of this object, but there is more. In this image, to the amazement of everyone, including the scientists involved who made these predictions, we can see two nostrils at the end of the nose. We can see an iris inside the eye socket. We can see an eyebrow feature over the eye socket. We can see that the mouth does consist of parted lips.